Ortho Info back with another leaky video. We're gonna be quiet today because my son's played himself asleep over there, living the dream. Today, let's get right into it. Today we got a complication. So don't blink because you might miss it. That's a hint, okay? But hey, all is well that ends well. Check it out. See if you can find it. See when it happens and what happens. Oh, snap sign. Bam. Now I saw that in real time. I saw that in real life. But the posterior capsule looked good. I was looking through the cataract. I didn't see anything that was suspicious for a posterior capsule rupture there. So I was a little bit in denial that something had gone wrong at this point. So press on. As Jason, what's his name? There's a baller surgeon, Jason something. He said, denial is not just a river in Egypt. So look, as I'm doing the Rosatelli spin, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna abort this because it seemed like the cataract was sliding nasally. It wanted to slide out nasally. So I was like, okay, I'll log that away and proceed on. And then boom, look at my chop. The piece that gets chopped is gone. It's like under the nucleus, under the iris nasally. Watch. The piece that gets chopped, it's like all the way under that. That's unusual. So now it didn't spin properly. We saw the snap sign. The pieces seem to be sliding under the nasal iris. I'm starting to move from denial to acceptance here that something is amiss. But let's watch on. I got a piece up. Look at this. I saw this in real time too. That red reflex is the cataract simply sliding towards the nose.
What's a cataract?
You know what a cataract is.
No, I have no idea. It's just an eyeball. Is it something widen it?
I'm recording.
Sorry.
You kidding me?
Sorry, I didn't see you. I thought you were fake.
So look, I know I'm pretty much in damage control at this point. I know something. I'm convinced something's up, and just the slight force, me trying to sneak that chopper, is pushing the whole thing towards the nose. So there's no denying it at this point. Something is up. I don't know what exactly though. I mean, do you see a break anywhere? What's going on? If you know what's going on, pause it, put it in the comments. So I'm able to pull up the pieces with vacuum. Now typically if you have a posterior capsule rupture, then you don't want to sub-chop the cataract, because if you chop it up into little bits, some of those bits may go back into the vitreous. So, but I didn't see any PCR here, so I'm doing a little bit of sub-chopping. Look at those horizontal striations, nasal on that's not normal. You see that there? You can see those horizontal striations in the posterior capsule / cortex. So good. I've been hard on myself up to this point, but that was good. I get some brownie points now, okay? So I put, despite the fact that I didn't see anything directly wrong, I indirectly picked up on some cues and made sure to fill the eye with OVD prior to coming out with the infusion, so as to prevent any prolapse of vitreous in case there's something going on that I can't see. And here, I avoid that area of concern. Put that last. You know, you don't want to mess around over there and create a big rip, and then you have the whole rest of the bag to clean up still. So do that part last, and then I got lucky there. It happened to come out as I was getting cortex out elsewhere. Bag's a little floppy there. You can see it wanted to come to the port. So again, here, you don't want to come out of the infusion. and risk the AC shallowing. I mean, if you have a great wound, it shouldn't shallow all the way, but it'll still shallow some. So good. Fill the bag up with OVD. I'm putting the single piece lens in the bag. I don't see anything wrong, do you? It's a toric too. I need the bag. I mean, I guess you could do reverse optic capture. And sure enough, look, there's the rent nasally. Bag's open nasally. I wanted to make sure that my haptic wasn't flailing around in the vitreous, so I got it at an angle here, and I could tell, yep, I could see the posterior capsule is behind my haptic there, so I'm good. The toric was not perfectly aligned. It's hard to tell. It's not perfectly aligned, but it's close enough. We want to just sort of get out of dodge here. So hydrate, again, that's a good move there. Hydrate the wounds before you remove all the OVD, because you want your wounds to seal when you come out here. You don't want any additional risk of vitreous prolapse. And that looked good. So how do you like the vision?
I can see my fingerprint.
You can see your fingerprint even, huh?
God.
Look right here for me. There's a wrinkle in the bag there. Now that can cause
Awesome.
a starburst when looking at a light source. But don't yag it for a long time. I'm not going to yag it for a long time. Because the bag could just splay open. So you want to wait till it's totally, I'm going to wait till, I mean, he's not symptomatic, so I'm not going to yag it ever, but I would, if I needed to yag it, I would wait, I don't know, at least 6 months to a year probably. But anyhow, so what's the take home? A few take homes. One is know about cortical cleaving hydrodissection, and that it requires greater force to dissect the cortex off of the capsular bag. And we know this intuitively if you just think about how difficult it is to peel cortex off the bag at the end of the case versus removing the epinuclear shell. The epinuclear shell comes up and off of the cortex much easier than the cortex coming off of the bag, right? So that plane is much more difficult to dissect, and so you're going to have to apply a greater force with your hydrodissection and build up a greater pressure on that posterior capsule if you're doing cortical cleaving hydrodissection, and you may be doing it by accident. So let's look at a good video demonstrating what cortical cleaving hydrodissection is. Here you'll be able, I've got a little bit of a posterior focus as I'm doing hydrodissection, so you can see very clearly the adhesions between the cortex and the bag. So I'm going to pause it right there. You see all those radial sort of like striations? Those are adhesions between the cortex and the bag that have not been dissected off the bag. And I'll play it. One more quick note. You can see also that the leading wave of when you do cortical cleaving hydrodissection is a little bit serpiginous or lumpy bumpy, as opposed to a more uniform flat wave that just right across, which is what happens when you dissect within the epinucleus or between the epinucleus and the cortex. When you cleave between the cortex and the bag, it moves slower. It's a little bit lumpy bumpy, and sometimes takes a serpiginous route as it crosses over, and you get the radial striations where you have adhesions still attached to the cortex. And this is why we spin it to try and loosen up these persistent adhesions. Look at this. So you can see the cortex sort of changing its orientation as I go back and forth with the nucleus here, sort of like the seaweed under a wave at the shore, because it's still adherent to the bag in these areas. So be aware of the type of cortical cleaving hydrodissection that's occurring. Just because you're not pushing, shooting the jet stream of BSS during hydrodissection anteriorly against the posterior aspect of the anterior capsule just because you're not doing that intentionally doesn't mean that part of your jet stream won't dissect through the epinucleus at the equator and get into that subcapsular space. And so if you're doing cortical cleavage lateral dissection on purpose or by accident, you got to be aware of it, number one. Number two, I would recommend stopping short. Consider stopping short, which is where you don't go, I'm going to rewind it or play it back for you. You don't go all the way across around the far equator. So travels across and then stop, right? You stop short of the equator. And oftentimes if you push down on the nucleus a little bit, it'll propagate a little bit, but you don't have to do that. You just sort of stop short, because to get that wave to go dissect the cortex off the far equator is going to require the greatest amount of force, and that's where you're going to get the biggest, the largest relative capsular block. Of course, if you have a smaller rectus and it's a bigger cataract, this is going to be even more important, but even for all cases, that's where you're going to get the highest relative capsular block. I believe there's always some capsular block with every case if you do cortical cleavage lateral dissection, because, and you'll see that when you do a chop, if you do direct chop, and when you separate the pieces, you see a gush of fluid come up. If you have viscoat filling the AC, you'll see the BSS gush up as you do the chop, because that breaks the capsular block. That happens all the time. People don't even realize it. That's because every case has some relative capsular block, okay? So I would recommend, as you dissect, at least at this point in my career, what I'm doing is as the wave travels across, I stop short. I don't dissect the far equator. And in doing the spin and other things, it loosens up. You don't have to dissect 100% of the cataract, regardless of what layer you're in. So anyhow, know how to recognize cortical cleavage lateral dissection. Consider stopping short, particularly if you have a small rexus or if you have a dense cataract. And then also watch video. If you watch video, you will pick up on things. Like I picked up on the snap sign in real time. I saw it. Just I've seen it a number of times online, and I just saw it when it happened. Even though I was in denial, I still saw it and thought about it later on. And then I saw that the pieces weren't behaving correctly. They were moving under the iris nasally. And so I picked up on a bunch of indirect cues to realize there was a problem, and I prevented things from getting worse. And in the end, it was, he's doing fantastic. So, perhaps that was luck, but you want to also be able to recognize things. Attention to detail, as Dr. Wong's video just posted. And part of doing that is simply watching video every day, and then you don't even have to try, it just happens. So anyhow, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Peace.